All right, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about the type of Tefilah that we call Kriya. So this is the source is from Sharim Bat Tefilah from Rav Shimshon Pinkus, and Kriya comes from the language of Kriya, of calling out to Hashem, comes from the pasuk in Tehillim. It says Batzar li ekra Hashem, in times of tsar, I call out to Hashem. She says Kriya. He Tefilah shekari ha'adam HaKadosh Baruch Hu mikuach hakara brura shekadosh Baruch Hu shomei lo mituach shebaru lo shebemidosav yisbarach la'azin letefilaso bekochu la'asos bakashaso. He says that Kriya means that you're calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, knowing that it's only within Hashem's ability to be able to save you and to be able to do whatever it is that you're asking. He says it's similar in nature to when you call out to a friend who's nearby for help. And he says even though there's another idea of sometimes when we're in tsar, we just call out, even though there's nobody else around. He says that's nakam. We've talked about this in a different chabura, but that's not kriya, because naka is just when you're calling out sort of instinctively, but this is kriya when you're actually calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The kriya here raka asher ikar pinyoso ukriyaso mekavnim lemishu mesuyam. Right, you're calling to someone very specific, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She'achen shomei kolo, because he's going to listen to you. V'hu korei lo. You're trying to make a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to ask for something very specific. This is, he says, this is something that's critical in Tefilah and in Avodas Hashem. When we call to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's because there's something tangible. It's a connection between us and God. Lo pachus mikol mitzius domim samech chai medaber ha'omdim lefunenu. It's not anything less than anything physical around us. Ken Hashem yisbaruch hu mitzius hi amitis. The relationship and the nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world is emes. Pshuta or brura ledaber v'likrolo. It's very simple. We can call out to him. We can talk to him. We can have conversations with Hashem. When we call to the more that we can do this, the greater that we can become. V'hinei shloshet dvarim tzarich sheyistakel ha'adam yizbonen heitev kadei sheyagia el zos hayira. Mesilas Yesharim says there are three things that you have to look at, that you have to think about in order that you can achieve yira. Hachad shehu omid mamish lifnei abori yizbarach shemo v'nosen imo afapish ein eno shel adam roeu. We have to always realize that we are in God's presence. We are in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though we can't physically see him. This is very difficult for us since we don't see it physically, see his physical presence. Right? Our five senses don't help in this manner. Amna. Mishahu bal seichon nachon b'ma'at his bonus v'simas lev yachol ligbo belibo amitis hadavar. However, if we simply contemplate life and we have a little bit of intellect around us, we can realize that what's really going on, who really runs the show. Echu ba v'nose ma meshimo yizbarach l'fon of who mischanein amito who mevakesh. That's who we are beseeching when we need something. Who is Baruch Shema Ma'azin lo Makshi ledvarav Asher Yadaber Ish Arayehu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens; he pays attention to us just like a friend would as well. Rehu Makshi v'Shomei Ela v'Chol Ein Sham. So you have to see the Mesilas Yesharim inside to see more of that. Ugechosh Adam Mechai Im Pashtus Zu Pashazu the Muchashis Etzlo. The more that a person has this in a very simple way, simple approach to to our relationship and our conversations with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the more that he feels it, Tefillah yoser zaka ubrura, the more his tefillah will be pure and will be clear. Bavadasa amitis, and more of a I suppose a pure or truthful avoda as well. And that you'll be more zoch as well to siyata d'shmaya, that help from HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. So v'hnei avagav da kriya ina kolelas adayin es habakasha be'inyan shehut tzarich. So what is the kriya? Kriya is just when we call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it doesn't actually include anything that we're actually asking for. Shahari kriya kodemes ledibor. First, you call out to your friend, or in this case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you can describe what it is that you need. That kriya litra hamaga bechadesha asheni yana likriyasa v'hi yemuchan lahakshiv lo v'az tavo habakasha o tzaka. You're just getting the Kadosh Baruch Hu's attention. You're making a connection to Hashem. But still, the kriya itself, the calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, has to be done in a manner with the right words to make the right kind of connection. Because you're calling him for a specific reason. And therefore, when we think about it, when we call out to somebody, we call out that person's name. And that's, at a very simple level, that is the reason why we all have a name, so that we can be called. Somebody can call us and say, hey, can you come here? Can you come help me? I need you for a moment. Dahari Hashem b'muvan hanachon kol inyanuhu lahagdir ulafaresh es mehus bal Hashem. But it's also something that really describes the essence of that person. Yadua medivre chazar she'amar Kadosh Baruch Hu lamalachei yashares al adam harishon kachmasu meruba mishochem. As Chazal say, and then that Hashem said to the malachei yashares regarding Adam harishon that his chachma was greater than their chachma. Because Adam Harishon was able to give names to everything in the Bria. Because he could realize what the essence and the purpose of everything in the Bria was, and that's why he could give them a name. And apparently the Malachai Sharis weren't able to do that. You're calling it out to a person in this, for example, but you're calling out to a very specific person for a very specific task or need or what have you. And the reason why you chose that person is because you think that, or that they have the ability to accomplish whatever it is that you need. So sometimes maybe this is a little bit more difficult, in our times. Could go in when you have names, for instance, could go in Moshe, Avram, or David, Shari Shemos, Ela B'Makora, Mem Shemoshol Avasolim. Right? All the Hebrew names that we have, at least the classical, the traditional names, all come from the our forefathers. And even today, right, we still have a connection between the person and their name. There is some kind of a connection there. But sometimes this is a very hidden idea. Right? And how do we know this is something that's hidden, that's not always clear to us? Because you could also have a Rasha who has the name of Avram, David, Moshe, etc. But it's a very appropriate mashal when we think about how we call to our parents, like we call our father Abba. Shekori lo Abba, Basher hu Abba, or Kori le Rabba, Rabbi V'mori, or we call to our rabbi, to our teacher, Rabbi Umori. Shekore ela upona lo Basher hu Rabbo sheyana al shela. So he'll turn around and he'll realize what we're talking to him. V'chein in kriyas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but this is also true when we call it to Hashem. Shekore elav yizbarach b'masha baru lo she'Hashem yizbarach karov elav shomei kriyaso ubeikar masha kore b'shmo yizbarach kagon b'shem sharachamim. So if we call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with one of his names, for instance, one of the names of mercy, so you call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he should be merciful with you. You're going to use the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that also is indicative of mercy. And therefore, even in the Kriya, even when we are just simply calling out to Hashem, we're going to use that mashal again, that when you call to a friend, you're just trying to get their attention. But when you call it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you're using a name that is already connected to what it is that you require, then you already have some of the essence of Tefilah in the Kriya itself. Remember Chazal, so in the Hakdam of the Sefer of the Shlah, he asks, why is it that that Bnei Israel can daven and they're not answered? He says because they don't know how to daven b'shem, or in the right name. Shenemar asagvehu ki yadash shemi yikraini ve'eneu. So he quotes the Medrash Tehillim that says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will strengthen us when we know, when they know my name. When they call out to me, I will answer them. And what is this? The problem is that we don't always know all the names, and certainly we don't use Hashem Mefurash. Because the Kriya itself has its own taina and has its own power even within the Kriya itself, the calling out. Could go an ani mevakesh mishu nedava, right? The ani who's calling out to somebody who can give him what he needs, to give him to sort of donate to that ani. So the ani is going to call out and say, "My master, the wealthy person, right? He's calling him a bekavod. Oh, Adoni Tov Halev, or my master, the one who has a good heart, right? Harayesh B'Kriya Zu Tvia, within the Kriya itself, there's already a request. The wealthy man knows exactly what this ani needs, that he needs something. I know Yesha'ata Asher Hare Zu Siba Shita'anikli. Shahare Biodecha Hadavar, because it's within the power, it's within the realm of that wealthy person to be able to give to the ani. Umipnesha Yish Lecha Lev Tov Minadinhu Sheta'aninu Shahari Zut Chunas Nafshecha. The fact that you have a good heart, the Tov Lev Tov, that is indicative of your character, and that's also the reason why you would answer me. Meaning, so in that same path, when we call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Hashem's name, that's a reason itself that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should answer us with the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's midos. You're walking around at night. This is his mashal, and you're walking around with a large wad of cash. Somebody comes up who wants to steal from you, or maybe even to kill you. And then it happens to be that there's a police cruiser who's driving by at that same moment. So he sees it and he calls out with all his might, "Allo, mishtara," right? Calls out to the police. But at the same time, there's other cars that are also passing by. Stam manda avar. But if you were simply to ask out generically, "Save me," anybody who hears him, that would be similar to where you're simply doing a more of a general shava otzaka. We saw before that was like when Bnei Israel in the times of Mitzrayim were simply calling out because of the tsar that they had. They weren't necessarily calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were simply calling out for anybody, calling out of their tsar. ma bruda v'nifla hi akriya kasher bocher v'noke b'shem misha makir v'birur shebekochu la'azor la b'masav zeh. When you're calling out to somebody who's very clear that they have the ability to help you, v'gam shenoke b'shmo b'diyuk, and you're using their name or a title or something that they understand, asher hu shota, that he's a police officer, shezeh Hashem mevate koach v'ichpatiot v'rachamim, right? That it also, in the name of it, the fact that he's a police officer means that he cares, that he wants to try and serve and help the public. He has mercy on those who need him. Tamid ragil asas maitzat salah. He's somebody who commonly is going to be someone who's trying to rescue people or help them. Shazem mitzvah avodasa. That's what he does. Zos v'od melvad noraos nechitzos akriya simcha b'dacha munachim b'kriya zu. And even more so, the person who's calling out to them knows that that person has the ability to help them, how much simcha they have, and bitachon, that within just the kriya itself, that they know that this person's going to be able to help them. The fact that this police officer happens to be right there and he can hear him, he knows that the person's going to help him. Kain mamish k'mashal zeh b'kal v'chomer of ben benosho kal v'chomer ma'adechziv yavor Hashem al panav. This is really the mashal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the pasuk says v'yavor Hashem al panav. Moshe Rabbeinu haya beregesh al pachad v'charadin naraim, and Moshe Rabbeinu is very scared. What's going to happen to Bnei Yisrael after the Chet Egel? Call Ha'ashir Shekiba HaTorah Atzma Nitzchius Am Yisrael Tachlis Kol Go Halomos V'Chin Ratzon Hashem Ba'olam Es HaKol Omdim La'ashot Mimenu Ayidei Ma'isa HaEgel. Everything that they had already achieved, all of the riches that they had achieved, meaning the fact that Bnei Yisrael were chosen, they were taken out of Mitzrayim, they were given the Torah. Everything was ripe for them, and it all could be lost in a moment. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is feeling: is all could be lost because the Ma'isa Ha'ego. Hashem al panav hashchina kedosha kiviyachol overis samuch lo. The way he understands it is, what does it mean? Vayavor Hashem al panav veikra means that somehow the Shechina, however we understand that, was passing right next to Moshe Rabbeinu, vayikra. And what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He calls out. Umakara. What does he call? Hashem. Kiviyachol ka'omer alo Hashem. It's as if Moshe was looking at him like the police officer and saying, "Help! HaKadosh Baruch Hu, help!" Mehaveh kol achius me'apes hagamor bechesed ein sofi shel koach ein sofi shel rachamim ein sofi shel kirva v'chpatius. Calling out in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that signifies rachamim and the infinite nature of his rachamim. Everyone who calls out in his Tefilah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who beprat be'es tzara, she'az Hashem Yisbarach over karov samuch lo. And specifically, when you have a specific tzara that you need Hashem to help you with, E'ez a kriya nora hizu milas Hashem. That kriya fits, very well with when we call it to Hashem. Yovin lerega kol echod kefi orko mahi mashmos Hashem. We all understand, according to where we're holding, what the implications of that name, of the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ezu utzma munachas bov umahu kola. What does it include? What does his name mean? V'yesh b'zeh od mashal im shotrim elehem al yado v'lo she'avru sham b'mikra elahu hikdim v'nasan lehem scharam al menashehu smuchim al l'shomer. Now let's change the mashal, and the mashal is not just that the policeman happened to be there on the street at that moment, but it was that they're his hired security detail. Right? So now they are standing there, they're walking with him, they are armed, and they are ready to protect him. And then he calls out to them and says, my officers, my security guard, save me. In kol hamashmos shel elokuso yizbarach sheli. What you're calling out is you're saying that this is my God, this is my Kadosh Baruch Hu who's going to save me. How powerful this is. And how much simcha bitachon you have, that you know that Kadosh Baruch Hu is standing right there and ready to help you. Like when we call out and we say, God, stop me from saying lashon hara. Chazal shaklu lashon hara keneged shlosh averos hachamuros. Chazal weigh lashon hara to be just as terrible as the three cardinal sins. V'im kein hari nimsa b'masav shel sakana nara v'im laoshko b'kol ashiroso avur mila achas v'az tzoek elokai. That you're about to say one word and you call out Hakadosh Baruch Hu. V'chein kol Tefilah kula shemos kadoshim v'norem kol echad im narasa kriya shelo la'atzmo. Okay, so v'hine lavin pashtus inin miyuchad zeh shotfila ayidei kriya b'shmo shel Hakadosh Baruch Hu tzarich levaer ktsas es inin bitachon Hashem. So he says that if before we can really go further into this and understand this even more, we also have to understand that there's a certain prerequisite here. The prerequisite is bitachon. Before you can call out to Hakadosh Baruch Hu and say, I need your help, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, I'm in this terrible tsar, we first have to believe and have that, right? He said that how much simcha you have when you call out to Hakadosh Baruch Hu because you know he can save you, just like if you had your own personal security detail, right? But that has that prerequisite of bitachon. So, hine, ikar inin bitachon memavur berishonim hu mida mimidosav yizbarach. Dekasher adam botech v'Hashem ayedei zen nitza mikotzor k'moshe amru lo yichomu lenetzach kol achosim bach. So everything is predicated on your bitachon. The fact that you believe that Hakadosh Baruch Hu will never leave you, will never, and that anybody who's seeking out Hakadosh Baruch Hu never gets left out by themselves. B'medrash Tehillim Chafei Amru Mashal le'echad shahaya listim. So there's a mashal in the medrash that says that a person was in front of, had bandits there, tafsuhu, they grabbed him and they were beating him. Amar Karov lemelechani. So what does he say to them? I'm a Karov, I'm a relative of the Melech. Of Yehu lemelech. So they said, oh, maybe we should stop beating him. Or they took him to the king. Amar leya melech v'chiat Karov sheli. So they so the Melech says to him, are you you're one of my relatives? Amar le, but dachni b'cho. He said to him, I had bitachon in you. Amar Melech ho bitachna bi alai lehatzilcha. You had bitachon me that I could save you from these listim. Okay, then maybe I should save you if that's how you felt about me. Ayin shem halashan. Hare dekachi hamida. That's exactly the midah of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Bitachon b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu atzum siba sh'Hakadosh Baruch Hu yid'ag lo v'yatzilehu. That's the reason that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to be worried, concerned, and save you. Maybe you don't have the best maisim out there. The fact that you'd be talking on Hakadosh Baruch Hu, that in itself is a powerful reason for Hakadosh Baruch Hu to give you to have rachmim on you. V'chein hebi agra, Mechazal, the Gra brings this from another medrash. Al pasuk v'abotech b'Hashem chesed yisovevenu. The person who has bitachon in Hashem, his chesed will surround you. The Gra says, what happens if you're a Russia? It doesn't matter. Even if you're a Russia and you have bitachon, chesed will still come from Hakadosh Baruch Hu to you. Libo batuach b'Hashem hi asiba lekaba mevukasho behechrech. That bitachon in itself stands on its own. V'hu yisod miyasodas haTorah she'al yedei habitachon mapik ratzim Hashem she'afal pi she'enu roi lepi ma'asav. And this is an incredible foundation. It says Rav Pinkus that even when you don't have all the ma'asim to back it up, the fact that you have bitachon, that in itself is going to give the bitachon a power. Amnam. So I think here We're going to get into more of a discussion about what that means and what happens if you're a tzaddik versus a rasha, which maybe what we'll do is skip past this. So let's take a look at the top of the page here. It says, "V'chein b'masha amru Chazal deyish makom lebitachon gam l'rasha v'lo rat l'tzadik." The fact that Chazal say the bitachon is something that helps a rasha, not only a tzaddik. Aval hevdel gadol yesh ben habitachon hatzarech l'tzadik lebitachon hatzarech l'rasha. It says the one thing we do have to realize is there is a difference between the type of bitachon that is required if you're a tzaddik versus a rasha. Now tzaddik dai lo b'bitachon b'madrega b'chusa. A tzaddik, even with a little bit of bitachon, is going to be probably okay. Kivin sheim biyado averus dimsa lefi matzava magia lo hayeshua v'nimsa sakanas b'chusa. Right, because of that, he can sort of rely on his own maisim and his good deeds. Of a harasha, im yiftach k'fi hasagas tzaddik harei b'mikra zeh lo yovil lo klum. But a tzaddik, if only has a little bit of bitachon, that's probably not going to get him very far because there's no zechuyos and maisim to back it up, so the bitachon on its own is not powerful enough. So the rasha is going to require a lot more bitachon. So just as a sort of a side issue to think about. But so let's take a look. We're going to go a little bit further, and with this, maybe we'll finish here. But we're going to take a look next time at Menashe. So Menashe, the Melech Yehuda. So there's a very interesting ma'isa around here. So we'll just start it now, and then we'll pick it up next time. Muvarim advarim b'yalkut malachim b'inyan tshuvaso shel Menashe. So Menashe did a sort of tshuva process. Zolashon amay v'asruhu asolo kamin molyar shel nechoshes v'asu oso nekavim sur letocho. So we'll see this next time. But what's very interesting about Menashe is he seems to say, you know what, he was going through a terrible tsar, an illness, something like that, and he first goes to all the avodah zarah, he goes through all the avodah zarah, nothing helps. Then he says to Kadosh Baruch Hu, you know what, if you can help, great. If not, I can see that you're just as powerless, chas v'shalom, as any of the avodah zarah are. And he is saved from this. So we're going to have to look at what that means. What exactly was that level of bitachon? What exactly was that level of kriya? And so Pinchas is going to really examine that, and we'll cover that next time.